And today I'm joined by Remi Lopez
Good morning,
in
Joy.
between Osaka and Kyoto, you said, huh?
Yes, that is correct. I live in Suita City, a small place where the very first Asahi beer factory was built, actually.
And today we're talking about Remi's travel adventures and some of your backstory as well for people who don't know how you got started in Japan.
Sure.
So maybe let's start there. I heard in a really interesting interview you did a podcast, Lost Without Japan
Oh,
podcast, and you were talking about how you ended up coming to Japan. You were in business school in France.
yeah.
You have a French and Spanish background. Is that right? Tell us a little bit.
That is correct. Well, I lived all my life in France, but long story short, my family on my father's side is actually Spanish. But my father never lived in Spain because during the war, the Spain War, Franco and everything. Well, his family had to run away and they went down to Morocco as refugees. And my father was, in that case, originally born in Casablanca. He grew up there for a few years, and then they decided to move up north, which was France. And so our family used to live in south of France, like around Marseille, Nice, or around that area.
Oh, nice. I've actually been to Casablanca many years ago. I've been to Spain and France as well. So, do you speak Spanish as well as French?
I used to speak, let's say, a decent Spanish for my age without. I've never been taught like natively. My father never did, which is why actually a huge loss when I realized I had the potential to be bilingual naturally, and he never spoke to me in Spanish. So I had to learn, and until I was like 15, 16 years old, I could speak a decent Spanish because we used to come to Spain sometimes to visit the family. But I lost it completely. When people speak Spanish, I understand quite, let's say, a reasonable volume, but I always English comes first.
That's so interesting. And then when you came to Japan, you came as an English teacher. Is that right?
Well, that's also a very weird thing, and pretty sure
But you were English teaching for a while, right?
I was, but I came. My English skills were not that good to be very, fluent. I had the knowledge, but I didn't have the skills because it's what's usually it's the most common problem you have at school. You study the theory, but you don't have any time to practice out of the classroom. So yeah, basically when I came to Japan, I couldn't speak a word of Japanese. Let's be honest, nobody could speak French, of course. So the English was my only way out, and the easiest solution to find a way to communicate efficiently as fast as I could. And so during the first 6 months of my life in Japan, I used to study the Japanese theory in the morning, then just going out and meet a lot of people and practice English all day. And at night, I was just practicing Japanese for the price of a beer, which is the best life language experience ever.
I love that advice. Just go to the local bar, have a beer, and chat with everybody and
Exactly.
practice, get great practical in real life practice. I love that.
Exactly. A lot of Japanese are not willing to try to talk to you in the first place because they are afraid of failing so much that they'd rather not try instead of being maybe embarrassed. But if you do take the first step, they will be extremely nice and welcoming you and just trying to talk to you because they see you're trying as well.
Awesome. One other thing I thought was really interesting, you were talking about being in business school in France,
Yeah.
and you introduced an idea about samurai philosophy for
Mhm.
business. And your teacher was telling you, you really have to go to Japan. This is amazing.
Yes, there was a management philosophy teacher, and he told me like, okay, Remy, it looks like you have a kind of an interest about that. Why don't you write an essay and about management philosophy and well, give it to me. So now it's not it's not really the best person ever to take example of, but my subject was Carlos Ghosn and how he represents the modern day samurai, how to apply the precepts, the philosophy precepts of samurai in the modern days in the business in the modern industry actually, how to behave like a samurai. And he was called himself by another newspaper, I don't remember the name, but he was called the modern day samurai as well. he was the highest paid CEO, the highest paid foreign CEO in Japan, which I guess there was a reason why he was paid that much.
Oh, I've heard that before actually, that there is the bushido, or the samurai etiquette,
Yes,
really does play into Japanese business a lot. So I'm sure
very
that
much.
was a great background and a way to start your own business. So let's talk about your business a little bit.
Mhm.
I want to start with the Eigo-Tours, because
Oh,
a lot of us who work in tourism are really struggling through COVID. As a language teacher, it seemed like a great way to transition to keep your tourism business alive, but focus more on the domestic Japanese market, right?
that
Tell
is
us a
correct.
little bit about Ego Tours.
Absolutely. Well, everything started in 2020 when, well, everything stopped coming to Japan. The inbound was closed. Japan was closed for 3 years, but the 2020 was extremely rough for a lot of companies. And in the end, I knew that nobody would come anytime soon. So I wanted to find a way to, how can I say that? To get s- get a first foot in the domestic market. But I knew, I mean, it would make sense that why would Japanese agree on a foreigner guiding them and showing them around in their own country? It doesn't make any sense. Most people would say, "You're a foreigner. Why would you show me my own country?" It's not really attractive, you know. Not nobody would say, "Oh yeah, I would like to do that." No. So what I decided is to develop like a semi-guided activity where people would build up teams, sign up as teams. They would come with their own team already. They would have different documents with three different parts, regrouping some video watching activities, listening, reading, some exercises. What did you understand from the text, from the video? You would have support, then some hints to listen to find the staff waiting for you somewhere in a city in English with a little bit of Japanese help or English help through Line, an automatic line assistant that would give you a hint if you struggle, with an emergency phone number that you can call if you're really struggling, if you're stuck, to make it possible for you to move forward even though you're not, maybe you're struggling too much and you want to move on. But the key of that activity is to turn an area or an itinerary into an English speaking environment. Even if you don't leave Japan, you can stay in Japan and you join with your team like if you were in a foreign country where nobody else speaks Japanese. um, that's actually something I was extremely pleased about, because we did some test runs. Of course, we cannot start something like this overnight. So, in the first place, especially for marketing purposes and to sell this activity to Japanese companies, I realized, first of all, that the way you market things in foreign countries and in Japan are very different. Uh, Japanese are like to be assisted and to do nothing on their own. They like to go to a travel agency and to say, "I want to do that. What do you have for me?" Then they come up with a plan, with a package, and if they take it, well, that's all good. Otherwise, they say, "Ah, I want something else." Fine. What about this? They just want something on paper they like, and that's it. They don't do any research. So my biggest surprise was most Japanese I talk to don't even know the name TripAdvisor, which is very, very surprising. So instead of going through direct booking on the website, which of course until now even didn't work because Japanese wouldn't look for anything on their own, I started to target travel agencies and to focus that activity on Shugaku Ryoko, that you must be familiar with, basically the school trips. Um, Now Japan Tour Adventure is a pending member of the Nara Board of Tourism, so I was introduced by a member of the bureau to like that person recommended me and my activities, so I would be part of it. Thanks to that, we started to think about how we can integrate those experiences in the domestic market, especially through travel agencies, like national travel agencies. And a few months ago, I had a big meeting with the GR Nihon Ryoko, and they loved it. but it's going to take a long time until they accept to integrate such a big experience in their catalog, and they will do some test runs. They want to invite like dozens of people to see if we can handle the number, because as you know, a school trip is not by the dozen, it could be by the hundred. So that's a very promising product, and for marketing purpose we also produce those kind of books. uh, you saw it, the first few pages on the website, and those actually are all done.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like you said, also for being part of the tourism board, these kind of relationships, they take time. You have to build
very
up
much.
trust slowly over time.
Yes,
But
you have to be
this
very
is
patient.
yeah, this is definitely something that's very needed
Mm,
and desired. And I was working as an educator for most of my career in
I
Japan,
see.
and I did many of these things for my students, but we really need experts outside of the universities who are in the travel industry and who understand the educational needs as well. So I think you're hitting those two targets that are hard to hit in Japan.
Mm,
So
trying,
yeah.
yes. Because I am not like a university teacher, I actually collaborated with a friend of mine who is a university teacher to actually check the book, which is why there are two names on the book, mine and my friend as well, who did a great job checking everything to make sure that there was absolutely no problem. Even the syntax, everything he checked, and he adapted it to make sure that it was native level but not too complicated. So those kind of activity would be probably reachable from high school for sure, maybe junior high if it's not the standard public junior high. If it's slightly more international a little bit and want to practice English. But also, what made everybody laugh but worked perfectly is this small badge. As you can read in Japanese, I mean, in English it's written, "Please speak English, thank you." But in Japanese, it's written, "I can only speak English." So even if
That's great.
we did test run with that, and of course every volunteers who joined the activity, and they had a great time, they were laughing out loud
Yeah.
when we gave them their badges. But then we realized, because we checked on them, we were not following them, but we were just having checking on them time to time. And in the book you have an interview part where they have to talk to strangers. They have to break the wall of um it's not shame,
They
it's
have
more
to
like
actually use it in real life. It's
exactly,
not just a textbook exercise, right?
it is not.
I remember giving badges similar to students when we would do workshops on location, tourism business students, to get them to practice communicating and guiding, like on a very workshop level. And
Hmm.
then I gave them badges that say, "I speak English. My name is welcome," or "Hello, my name is I speak English." And they didn't want to wear it. They tried to hide it. But then the ones who realized how fun it was and what a great chance to communicate
Yeah.
and to really learn about tourism in a person to person connection, which is what we want. We
Yes,
want people to engage.
it has to be challenging, and we have to break that wall of embarrassment before trying. You must just overcome that fear and try to take the first step. Which is why doing this, it was actually very fun to watch, because every volunteer were Japanese, not foreigners. It wouldn't make any sense, but they were asking people on the street in Nara during that activity, and because it was late 2021, we didn't have many foreigners around, so most people were Japanese anyway. But that was very fun, because when walkers were stopped by the volunteers to try to interview people, they were reading right away. They spotted every single time the badges, and some people were like, "Oh, sorry, no English." But people they were talking to were Japanese, but they had no ID because of the badge, and it worked perfectly flawlessly,
Oh,
because
good.
anyone who was willing to try started to speak English and didn't even think for a second to speak Japanese to our guest, which was great, because that little badge turned Japanese into English speakers directly, even if they were not our guests. They were just people walking on the street, because they were doing their best, as they saw that officially they cannot speak Japanese.
That's awesome. And then you also, I don't know if you're continuing this now, but were you sending people from Japan to France as well? Or you
No,
were thinking about that? No.
no, we've never
Oh,
done
okay.
that. I
You've
have.
got enough on your plate in Japan, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For now, it's just focusing on inbound. Out
Yeah,
first
yeah.
outbound, we need a proper license to send people overseas. That would make us a proper travel agency, which we are
Right.
not, as we provide guided experiences up to 1 day.
Yeah. I've interviewed 2 people who take groups from Japan. So they do the training in Japan and
Hmm.
they take groups back to Italy or back to Spain and they help coordinate the tour in that country.
I
But they
see.
do the training part in Japan. And I think that also has potential. I'm sure you're busy enough with what you're doing. But maybe in the future, these kind of collateral engagement across countries, not a
Well,
bad
yeah,
idea.
I am open to any kind of collaboration. Then, will I do it in my name or will I do it in the name of the company and taking charge of everything? That's a different story.
Right, right. But it's great to meet another professional like you, Remy, who's also doing training in Japan with Japanese people to
Hmm.
get them comfortable in talking with visitors and engaging on that more personal level. That's what
Yeah.
I've been really focused on with doing guide training.
Hmm.
And it's something that's there seems to be a real gap in Japan with not being a guide that just speaks to the crowd and is a top down approach, but really having that level engagement, like getting to know each other for real on
Yeah.
an interpersonal relationship. And I think that is a real key point for quality guiding and quality engagement for sure.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, I believe so. And I think it comes from a background as a teacher because it helps really connecting with people you're talking to. I used to be an English teacher for kindergarten for a while, primary school as well. And essentially in the evening, because that's the busiest time of the day, you know what I'm talking about? It's a lot of Eikaiwa, the English conversation school. So you have really to they're usually adults, business people, workers who wants to practice English after office work. And in that case, it's not about teaching; it's more about communicating and interacting with your student. So if you cannot create a connection, it's never going to work. So
Yeah.
that kind of things really teaches us how to connect with people we just met as guides. And I believe that it's very important to create that connection as soon as possible to make sure that they will be connected to you and they will feel like you are more than a guide. As I
Yeah.
say,
Absolutely.
when you guide people, you start with a guide and you leave with a friend. That's the best feeling ever because you felt like you created something real through the experience.
Absolutely. And it connects on many different levels. Like a guide is not only someone who's going to tell you history and heritage. Sure, they're going to know that information if you're interested. But
Hmm.
I love that you also, like on the YouTube channel, you're introducing about Japanese bread. So, as a European coming to Japan, what do you think about Japanese bakeries and bread? It seems like you're a fan.
Oh, that's a very sensitive question. Well, I believe that there are different types of bread depending on the country. Of course, the an bread, anpan, is a Japanese style bread. I would not be able to compare it to French because they are very two different styles. This is a style that is owned by Japan. Do I like regularly? Do I like baguettes, the French bread in Japan? No, I do not. I choose my bakery. Full disclosure, I have a bakery not far from my house, and I checked many bakeries around, and I found that one which I liked, but the bread was a little bit too overbaked for me. So I talked to the baker, and I said like, could you take when I want to buy bread? Can I call you the day before, and can you take like the number of baguette out of the oven 15 minutes, like 20 minutes before, for me? He said, okay, no problem. Just let me know how many baguettes. And now I have my bakery and they bake in the morning the way I want.
That is amazing.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only
You
one
know,
who has that
there
ever.
is there is no harm in asking,
Exactly.
it's
As we say in
amazing.
my country, asking is free. The only risk you have is to be said no. So what? You tried. If you try and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if you
And
don't
if you
ask,
if
you don't
you
know.
do if you do it with a humble heart and you do it with a it's okay if it can't be done, in Japan that works really well, right?
Exactly.
Not
Yes.
saying can you like pressure or aggressive. No,
No, no, no.
a very friendly, nice. It's okay if it can't be done, but would it be possible? That kind of humble approach
Exactly.
works
I believe
really well.
a lot of people say, like the customer is the king. I do not think so. I think it's just a mutual respect. And the most important is that, of course, in those kind of situations, I have to speak Japanese exclusively because I don't speak English. And I mean, I'm sure you understand my point of view because you probably speak a very, very good Japanese, and you're native in English. Uh, when you switch language, you switch personality. You become a different person. I mean, when I speak Japanese, I'm extremely nice. I'm very polite. I'm very humble. And when I switch back to French, I'm one of the rudest person you can hear, probably. So
Well, you sound pretty nice in English too, Rebby.
well,
Well,
it's
that's nice. That's amazing to
um,
hear. But I did notice on your YouTube channel, the number one most watched video so far is all about melon pan.
yes,
But I think as guides, as local guides, this is part of our appeal that we can show you the deep insights of the local area that you will not expect and you will never find from just online information, right?
yes, that's right. I'm a foodie, so when I like something, I want to find the best. And to date, that company has the best melon bread for me. And I know that this is something that most people don't know about it. And the only one they know about is the regular yellow sweet one. Nothing really special about that. So when I realized that I have some time during the pandemic. I had some free time to create some videos, some content. I decided to make that one, and no regrets because I had to buy everything and then to eat everything. So very happy.
And another really bespoke relationship which you've built up over time is with knife makers and knife workshops. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that is actually the experience that takes the longest to set. Not because of the content, but because of the connections we needed to create such a very special experience. The difference is we don't take people to a touristic spot. We don't take people not even to a local shop. We take people to a working company environment. When we watch people working like they are literally working their full-time job and they're expert in their domain. And with the different connections I have in Sakai, I was given the chance to meet the president of the Yamawaki Cutlery Company, Mr. Yamawaki himself. This company has been going for over 100 years. Never changed name. Always Yamawaki as a president, and that's really what made that experience very special. It took us nearly 2 years to create trust, and now they trust us. It's I have to say it was not easy, and it still has a lot of restrictions, such as the number of days we can actually welcome people for that experience, which is only twice a week. But we are the only one they agreed on doing this because a few weeks ago we had a small group of people living in Japan willing to take that experience, and we said, "Oh, we are sorry. It's like New Year's. They're closed. We cannot open the experience because well they're not open, so we are closed basically." And they said, "Oh, don't worry. We're gonna ask them directly." And then they called us back saying like, "Mr. Lopez, we had a call. We only accept you to contact us, nobody else, because they want to keep that trust alive and they want to show us respect by not going around us, which is very, very nice."
I
And
think
every
it
time,
it shows it shows that they trust you, and
yes,
that's something that's so important and really takes a long time
very
in
much.
Japan. And then as a guide, one of the advantages for visitors is they will not be able to have that experience on their own, but also through you, the local workshop people, the local crafts people, they trust the visitor because they're with you. And that's
Yes,
another added value.
yes. The very big difference between that experience and any other in the area, Osaka, Sakai, Kyoto maybe, is that you can also purchase knives. Well, we teach you how to sharpen a knife, which actually build your confidence about being able to take care of your knives when you get home. Because most people buy knives and after a few weeks or after a few months says it doesn't cut anymore. Yeah, you have to sharpen it the right way. And if you don't do it, of course, a knife is not going to last you. But if we provide you the basic skills to be able to take care of that knife on your own, then if you buy knives, you know you will be able to take care of them and to, well, keep them sharp for a lifetime.
That's
And
awesome. I
after
I
that,
did a knife workshop, where we got to make a little bit of the knife
yes,
in the hot fire. That was pretty awesome, and then he sharpened it for us and then, gave it to us as a present, but unfortunately, there's no handle, so I'm not able to use it until I take it now to a handle maker,
yeah,
but it looks like your experience includes everything, every part that you need to
yes,
use it, but also the skill to know how to sharpen it yourself,
that's right.
which I think is awesome. That's a great experience.
Yeah, the only part we couldn't cover was the blacksmith because those people are very very busy and very private. They don't really like people to watch their techniques because it's quite authentic and kind of kept a secret for many things all around there. When it's all about craft and traditions, they are very private and they don't like to share, especially not with non-Japanese people. So the blade are coming directly from the blacksmith. They're not ready yet, but then we take them to the sharpening station, which is the first place we go to see the raw blades being ready to be to start looking like proper blades. Then we go to the main building when we can see the handle and the blade being put together and sharpen again to make sure everything's fine. Then we have the engraver to be able to put anything you want on the blade, as long as it's Japanese characters, katakana or kanjis, which have straight lines. No hiragana, which is too curvy.
Can I just ask, is he engraving now in this picture with a hammer and what looks like a nail?
Yes, they do.
That's incredible.
They have dozens of different nails with a different pattern at the end to be able to create different characters, or sometimes even just a full stamp of the company, and they have to hammer really hard to make sure that it's properly done on the first hit. And after that, we take you upstairs to a very specific meeting room. They get ready for us when we have a booking coming. We teach you how to sharpen the knife properly, and at the end, the best is that because we're at the office, they can make anything on demand downstairs. So you can choose the handle, the type of wood, the size of the handle. You can choose any blade you want, basic or Damascus, or even very long ones. Everything is displayed in in the meeting room, and it's basically a life-size catalog. We call someone especially for you. They take care of you. They write everything you want. We stay here to do the translation to make sure nothing's lost and no mistake is made. And then yeah, you accept the price, you pay, and they make it right away. um, and of course it depends on how big the order is, but the very very good point is that you get one of the top quality knife in the country for the wholesale price, and you don't have anyone in the middle taking a commission, so it feels cheap, but the quality isn't.
I
That's a
have a very practical question. Is
yes.
it is it easy for people to take knives home through their luggage?
Absolutely. Officially, knives are, cooking. It's for cooking. It's not a weapon, even though you can probably easily kill someone with it. But as long as the knife is properly put in your check-in luggage, not in the carry-on, of course, everything's fine. You don't need a certificate. You don't need any special authorization to take the knives out of the country. It's fine. Last year in August, we had just a family of three, two parents and a son coming, and they really wanted to buy knives, and they contacted us and they said, okay, you sold us, we booking. So they booked. On the day they came, they were thrilled, they loved it, and in the end they went home with 21 knives. 21, which was a little bit too big to be made in the morning. So we left, and within 48 hours, the knives were delivered directly to their hotel. So if you have a very big order, we do not recommend you to join our experience at the last day of your trip, depending on how much knives you might buy. But they can deliver everything within 48 hours in Japan, not overseas.
Wow, that's great service. I took a group of university students to Australia, and I remember because it was a 1 month program,
Yeah.
and one of the students had a big kitchen knife in her checked luggage, and
Hmm.
I was surprised. Everybody was surprised, but the import people checking the luggage, they're like, "Oh, we see kitchen knives all the time. It's not a big deal."
That's
And I
actually
was really
surprising.
surprised, and they said, "Well, from Japan, Japan knives are so famous.
They
Of
are.
course, she wants her own cooking knife." Yeah, so 25 knives. I bet the person inspecting that bag might have been a bit surprised, though.
Well, it was divided in two suitcases, but the biggest surprise was that so 3 days later, they received all the knives, and the day after, I received an email from them, of course, thanking us for such an amazing experience. The quality was amazing, but it was so good. When they opened the packet, they saw all the knives. They contacted me again and saying, "Oh, Remy, can I push a little bit and ask you for more knives? We will. It's so good, and we know it's going to be once in a lifetime. We like to buy more for our friends and families." So in the end, I coordinated everything, and I was the person in the middle to make sure everything was fine. And they ordered 9 extra knives to the company. With I took care of I took charge of all translation for the engraving, specificities, everything. They asked me for the exact same knife by 9, which is a way more simple way than ordering 9 different knives. And yeah, so they ordered on a Monday, and on Thursday they received everything, and they left on a Friday. So they went home actually not with 21 knives, but with 30 in their suitcases.
Oh
I don't
my
know the face the
goodness.
customs made when they opened the suitcase, but it must have been memorable. Yeah.
We have a comment from Warren Tang on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining, Warren. Maybe I should do countryside tours. Warren, you definitely should. Warren lives in a beautiful area about an hour and a half outside of Hiroshima,
Okay.
called Kono, and it's really famous because of Jimmy Carter.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So a lot of interesting connections with Jimmy Carter and a Peace Bell. It's always a beautiful area to visit. I went out and saw Warren out there. I think the more of us who are promoting rural travel in Japan and these special experiences where people can really experience Japanese culture, engage with locals, it's so important, and it enhances your whole trip. It's not just about seeing the most famous sites for your Instagram posts or whatever, right?
Exactly.
It's that's not You might be happy that you have that photo, but you can see those photos online. You can't have these personal experiences
Yeah.
in those busy, busy spots, right?
That is correct, yes. And usually I have to admit that most of the time the picture on internet looks better.
Now, your main tours. Oh, it's great to have Louise Puppy from YouTube as well. Thanks for joining, Louise. Now, Louise is based in Auckland, New Zealand, but she often brings groups over to Japan
I see.
and does a variety of tours. So you have to check out some of Remi's tours in Osaka and Nara and Sakai. You've got some great areas. So your main tours are the cycling and walking tours, right, Remy? Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, well, that's actually the first activities we created in Nara City, which is where we started. I wanted to be able to get the best out of Nara in even half a day and to save a lot of time for people, because we found out that most people don't stop in Nara for the night. They usually come either from Osaka or Kyoto, and they just think they can do everything in one day on foot, which is extremely hard. So I created essentially two tours, very important and very different. The first one is called the Nara Highlights. So the highlights is the equivalence of one day walking, but we do it in about 3.5 hours. So then it gives you time to go for lunch and then go back and see again you what you like the most, and maybe dig deeper inside. Or you can start exploring the south part of the old town, which you wouldn't have time to do if you were on foot, because what we do on the bike takes the whole day anyway if you don't have a bike. The second one is something, it's actually my favorite tour. It's not the most famous, like the second most popular tour, but it is something that we do not do very often for now, and we have to be a bit more careful. It's called the Heart of Nature. We take you to a knife shop which over 750 years old of history. But then, right after that, on the way down to Kasuga Taisha Shrine, we don't go to the shrine, we turn left to a trail, mountain trail with the bikes we have, and we take you to the top of Wakakusayama to observe the whole city from a very high spot. And then we dig inside Kasuga Yama Primeval Forest to show you some lost temples and shrine in the mountain that even most Japanese don't know about and don't remember, with some very amazing stories, such as the carved stones from Buddhism. And that story is just a mystery, and it's kind of a mystical aspect to that, let's say, that experience deep inside the old forests of Nara city, Nara prefecture, I would say, more than the city.
It looks amazing. And I love how you combine like your knife tour. You still have sweets shops that you stop at along the way. And then introduce like more Japanese style sweets, which I think actually it's kind of hard to figure out when you're coming from the outside, unless you have someone to guide you through and say, listen, the benefit of Japanese sweets, it's gluten free, it's vegan. Everybody can eat it. It has
Mhm.
less sugar than conventional Western sweets.
Yes.
Often there's very little packaging involved, so it's more sustainable, less waste that way too.
In
Um,
traditional shops, usually have a
yeah.
tiny piece of paper wrapping the thing, and that's it. You can take it that way, which is always what we appreciate. We ask for no plastic bag to limit the plastic waste. As I said, we like to do this. And you mentioned the knife shop and the sweets. It's actually combined in one tour where we take in the knife factory and craft. You can see on the right what we do. We take people not just to a knife shop, but to show them more than that, especially traditional craft, including the original mochi with cinnamon, back to the days when the Portuguese arrived in Japan, and they introduced cinnamon in the first place. And cinnamon was used as a medicine, to fight stress and cold a little bit, coughing. But most Japanese couldn't take their cinnamon because it was too strong. They didn't like the flavor; it was way too much, and even especially the kids, they didn't want to. So Japanese decided to create a very specific mochi, like a daifuku, with cinnamon a cinnamon paste inside, and that place we take people to is the original one that. In the first place, created that mochi over 200 years ago, and that place never moved. The building itself is over 200 years old, and it was a family business for over 12 generations. And if you're familiar with Kyoto a little bit, everybody knows usually when you stop here, you have a lot of mochi triangle called yatsuhashi. Well, the original yatsuhashi is actually not chocolate, strawberries, or even green tea. It's cinnamon, because the yatsuhashi was created with the assistance of that shop in Nara, providing the cinnamon and teaching them how to make the right mix to create the original yatsuhashi. Though that shop is the origin of the yatsuhashi as well, because they helped them creating it. So historically speaking, but also traditionally speaking, it's extremely interesting before going to the knife shop, but the knife company, sorry. But also you can get to taste one because it's included in the tour. So to me, it's by far the best I've ever had, and I tried to get access inside to watch them making it, and I said, sorry. We like you coming, but this is secret. We don't show it to anyone. Not even the professionals share that. This is actually a very well kept secret for over 200 years. They do not share it with anyone, not even with the government.
That's so interesting. But the secrets are part of the charm of many places in Japan,
It
right?
is.
Like I'll do guided tours to temples where they have treasures that they tell you about, but they never show anyone, right? So just knowing that that secret treasure is there, or that secret style of making something, or that secret recipe, that makes it really enticing, right? Secrets are more exciting. You don't want to know everything in life, do you?
Yeah, that's part of the beauty of Japan, because they when you join such an experience like that, you feel even more privileged that you have the opportunity to taste something that most people will not, because they don't know where it is. And even if you don't know the secret, it's kind of a nice feeling to know that what you have in your hands is a mystery and will never be really revealed to you. It's yeah, it's kind of a seducing secret that you like, the fact that you are having access to something that is kept secret, even though you will never know that secret, you have access to the finished product.
And you can always talk about it. You can
Exactly.
say, "I wonder if they used cinnamon or how they use cinnamon in this ancient secret recipe." It's still very
Mhm.
exciting. Just a shout out to Pamela on Facebook. Great to see you here. Louise on YouTube and Lynn Melville Ray on LinkedIn. Wonderful to have you all here today.
Mm.
Talking a little bit more about the bespoke tours, kind of the interesting behind the scenes tours in Nara. Now, I wanted to point out about Nara deer. I
Okay.
had I had a lesson yesterday on my online course for tour guides talking about using animals and sustainable tourism. And in Hiroshima, we have Miyajima Island with the deer.
Yes.
We also have Rabbit Island. We also
Oh yes.
have Onomichi's Donkey Paradise, right? We have a few different animal attractions. But we also want to have respect for the animals, right?
Mhm.
Like to make sure the animals are well taken care of. And one of the charms of Nara deer is they bow to you, right?
Yes, they do. They bow. It depends how old they are. The young ones, they don't really care, and the old ones bow even before you hand them the cookie, or they even see it, because they just want to say, "Give it to me." But yeah, that's a very old story, actually. As you might be aware of, the Kasuga spirit came in a form riding a white deer, which is the illustration, which is why now the deer are worshipped in Nara, because they are like the representation of the spirit. And the bowing is actually based on a different story, what I've heard. It's a very, very old story of the hunter that was carrying his bow and arrow in the forest to find some food, and he saw a deer. So he started to target the deer to be able to get his food, of course. And then he witnessed to what was to him the perfect scene. He thought it was majestic, almost divine, and the deer started to look at him, to stare at him, and they stayed staring at each other for a few seconds. And the hunter then decided to lower his weapon and to let the deer go, and he bowed a sign of respect to say, "I'm sorry for trying to kill you." And to give his respect back, the deer looked at him and bowed in return, and then just left in peace. And that is the original story of the bowing for mutual respect. Of course, nowadays it's more about giving cookies, but they do bow, and it's mind blowing, because most people don't know about the bowing trick in Nara. So when we tell them and when we show it to them live, they can't wait to try it, and they are just stunned by the fact that they are actually bowing.
That's a great story. I love that story about being kind to animals and choosing your vegetarian vegan options when you travel in Japan. Please ask for it. More sustainable as well. But in Hiroshima on Miyajima Island, we actually used to have deer senbei, and they stopped it because the deer were becoming very aggressive
Oh.
about taking the food. So now what they've done is they actually feed the deer healthy natural food in the forest in the
Mm.
morning and evening. So you'll see the deer staying in the morning and eating their natural breakfast in the forest, and then coming down to the tourist areas to maybe get some scraps or snack foods that people drop. And then in the evening, you see them going back to the forest because they know they're going to get fed there. So that might be something Nara wants to think about as well, because I've heard from visitors in Nara that the deer are sometimes aggressive with the senbei. It's always tricky.
I wouldn't say aggressive. That would be a bit too strong of a word. They pinch you sometimes, though, because usually you have one person getting cookies, and you've got like quickly over 5 or 6 deer approaching, and it could be a bit overwhelming. And some people panic a little bit, especially the kids. But I have to be honest, it's really hilarious to watch. But
Yeah. But make sure you keep your real pass or any papers or money hidden because we've had cases in Hiroshima where they've eaten people's rail passes.
probably
You
happened
will
before.
not be able to use that excuse at JR. They will not believe you.
You know what they do sometimes, the deer, they just push you a little bit, with their head to say, "I'm here, I'm the one you should feed, not the others." Or if they don't see you, especially from behind, they would pinch you. They would slightly just bite you a little bit uh, on the cheek, I would say. And yeah, some people are surprised, but they don't get hurt. Not at all.
Oh, that's
I
good.
just got to the group
That's good to
yesterday, and they
hear.
had last two kids. They bought like 5 packs of cookies. They really had a great time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think that's like anything with sustainability, right? You always have to have that ongoing assessment. Does it look okay? Is it fairly safe? The animals look healthy. The people don't feel scared if the animals get aggressive, right? And then just keep reassessing how we can improve.
Mm,
And definitely important for tourism as well as any business looking for more sustainable options.
definitely.
Now, some of the other interesting things you were talking about, Takeda Castle. I'd never heard of Takeda Castle.
Oh, that one. Yes, Takeda Castle is called by Japanese. It's called the Japanese Machu Picchu. This is, if I remember, it's in Hyogo Prefecture near the city of Asago, and actually most of the best pictures you can find were not taken from the ruins, but you have to go to a different mountain to have the global view of the ruins on the opposite mountain. It's really beautiful, and especially if you're lucky enough, in the morning you have the clouds just under the ruins level, so it makes it look like floating in the sky. It is really beautiful, but I have to say that I went there with my friends on by bicycle, so of course, road bike, not what we call mamachari, would be way too far. It was like a 160 k's ride for one way, uh, and it was actually a very pleasant ride. The problem is it rained like crazy on the second day, so we were very happy that our wives were coming with us, but driving the car, so we all went home with a car.
Support vehicles, very nice part of long cycle tours for sure. But that's very true of like Mount Fuji as well. A lot of people come to Japan, they think I want to hike Mount Fuji, but are disappointed because the most beautiful view around Mount Fuji is looking at Mount Fuji. So when you're on Mount Fuji, you're not having that great view as much. So
For
definitely go to the Mount Fuji area, but it's beautiful to look at. And I think there's a few places like that around Japan. I
Yeah,
really want to visit. That looks amazing.
yeah, there are a few different spots, but from my own point of view, as I've done both, I have to say that I really enjoyed climbing up to the to Mount Fuji. There's a spot, if you're talking about outside point of view, I would say that my favorite ever is Hakone. When you go to the top of the mountain in Owakudani, the view is really 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 gorgeous because you can see all the forests around as well. You can also go to the east side, Kawaguchiko, which is really really gorgeous as well, with the pagoda, the very famous view with the pagoda, the cherry blossom, and the Mount Fuji in the middle. But it has to be extremely specific for the date because you have to go during the cherry blossom, and you must hope for no clouds around, or you won't see the mountain. But when you are on the mountain, you don't care because actually, when you have clouds, it's one of the most beautiful thing I've seen on the top. I've taken amazing pictures when you could see the sunrise and coming up the cloud. Um, Standing there with my friends at 4:30 in the morning to see the sunrise was really, really one of my best memories.
That's awesome. It's definitely worth, especially for places that are busy as well.
Mhm.
Definitely getting up to a peak and watching sunrise, or getting to a temple like in Kyoto, Kiyomizu-dera. Wonderful that they open at 6:30. That's when you should get there. You
Yes,
should get there as early as possible, right? Because it gets so busy between 9 and 3. It's incredibly crowded.
very much.
But yeah, having those views, getting up early, making it worth it, those are awesome. Now, as a cycle guide, cycle tours, we have a new rule coming in April. about mandatory helmets and
Yes.
insurance. Does this affect how you're doing the cycle tours at all?
Not really. No, no, no. We do have enough helmets for everyone. But until now, the rules was about if you're 13 years old or younger, you have to wear a helmet. If you are 14 or more, well, first of all, we have to ask your parents. And if you are an adult, of course, we just ask you, do you want one or not? Now, the only difference is that we tell people about the new rule, and we tell them, sorry guys, you have to wear a helmet. It doesn't matter how old you are, please wear one. We have everything. Just we are giving you one, and keep it on when you ride a bike. That's the only difference. Um, yeah, I think there's nothing really that makes it really different. Some people actually wear a hat, especially in winter. They have a hat to keep it warm, or they're wearing a cap, but a cap is not that thick, so you still can wear the helmet on top of it. It's not really, it doesn't make a big difference to me.
Yeah, I think it's to err on the side of safety. For cycle tours, it's not a bad thing. You did mention that you encourage people to ride on the road
Yeah.
with traffic, so you need a little time to get them used to that. Is that right?
Yes, in the morning, what we do, we specify everything about how we're going to ride the bike, because riding in Japan is not like riding in any other country. Because first of all, we ride on the left. From a French point of view, it was a small of adjustment, and also the brakes are the opposite, which is why in my country the back brakes are on the right and the front are on the left. In Japan, it's the opposite. The front is the right. Yeah, the front is on the right and the back is on the left. First of all, you have to remember that you should hit both brakes, not too hard, to make sure you keep control of your bike, which is extremely important. But also, we tell people that officially, according to the rule, bicycles are like cars. We have to keep riding on the road, because we cannot officially take the risk to cycle on narrow paths on the side of the road, because, well, you have pedestrians walking around and they are supposed to be there. We are not. So let's stay with the cars. But we tell them that Japanese drivers are usually extremely careful. They take their time. They do not panic. They do not get stressed. If they're behind you, do not get stressed. Do not step away. Stay in your way. Just don't stay in the middle of the road, but take the space you should take on the left. And they will wait for the right timing to go over you without bothering you, and by keeping a safe distance. So we just make people feel very fine, and we tell them beforehand that we're going to be on the road just for a short time, actually, to reach the main area of Nara, and then we try as much as we can to stay inside the parks, or to stay in the mostly very low driving areas, to make sure that we avoid most of traffic. But to reach from our bike base to the main area, so both ways, go and round trip, we spend a few minutes on the road. But yesterday I guided a small family of four with 8-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old boy, and everything went fine. They didn't stress at all. As long as you get people ready before, you give them a few minutes to try out the bikes to make sure everybody's comfortable with it, and you are very strict. You're very clear about safety. There's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah. And I think back streets are your friend, right? You can usually avoid the big traffic streets
Yes,
with back streets, which are often too narrow for your cars mostly. So they're a lot more quiet. You have to be careful of people walking, of course, but even walking tours, I always suggest taking the back street, which is often more interesting,
it
less
is.
crowded, less cars too, right?
Yes, less crowded, less cars. Then you see kind of a more residential areas, so you can see like regular old and new houses, and it's always much more quiet. So you can really enjoy your time walking around without all the traffic noise, and you can easily walk and talk to each other at the same time, because you have no pressure, no stress, and you don't have to stay in a single lane.
Yeah. Now I'm just showing, we've got a few more minutes left. I'm showing your website. Would you encourage people to reach out and contact and reserve directly through the website?
Yes, of course. I believe that for two reasons. Number one, when we deal through an intermediary such as OTAs, They take a commission, so it's not ideal for us either. But it's a good way of being visible on the web. We understand that there's nothing we can do to lower that kind of a commission. But if you book through us directly, the best thing is that the communication is much easier, especially when people are getting late or they miss the train, so they will be late to the meeting point, and especially when it's an open tour and other travelers are sharing the same time slot. The problem comes from the fact that when people don't show up, and they even send us a message, it takes me between 10, 15, 20 minutes for that message to get to us. But if you book with us directly, you can contact us directly by email or even by phone, WhatsApp, Facebook, many other different ways. So as when you have a problem, just let us know right away. The guide will be notified within seconds, and it's going to work much more, smoothly.
That's a really good point. And I think it's great to have the wider net of audience availability
Mhm.
and accessibility
Yes.
through those big platforms like TripAdvisor and other booking agencies. But in terms of communicating with your guides, being on WhatsApp is so helpful, right? You have that immediate messaging option back and forth with guides and guests.
Yes, we set everything in multiple apps. Focusing on Asia, and especially Japan, we created the communication directly with Line that you're definitely familiar with. But when we think about our most important audience, they are coming from overseas, which is usually focusing on WhatsApp. So we also created a WhatsApp contact. The hotline is reachable very easily. You just enter our phone number mentioned on the website and done. It's extremely easy, and it's very helpful when you want to communicate us something like a pressing, an emergency, a last minute request, or maybe we're sorry we're going to be 10 minutes late. Fine, we're going to wait for you for 10 minutes. But if you tell us 10 minutes before, we will get the message 5, maybe 10 minutes after you are already late, which is a very annoying point.
Yeah. It's frustrating for both customer and guide host, right?
Very much, yes.
Definitely.
Especially because when they send the message, it takes time to be sent it to us. But then the time we reply, you multiply by 2, which means between the time they send the message and the time they get our reply to make like a confirmation. Yeah, okay, we're gonna be waiting for you. That would take between 20 and 30 minutes.
Wow. That's
One
way too late.
for the information to go both ways.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem is the time to be notified.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Remy. So much great information today. And it's so great connecting with you. And I hope people will check out Japan Tour Adventure.com and find out more about your tours. You also talked about training lots more guides so that you can cover, it's quite a big area that you're trying to cover many tours in. You're in the Kansai area, so Nara, Osaka, and Kyoto, right?
Yes, we released two experiences, walking experiences in Kyoto, and we are now working on a very new type of experience. All our experiences will be designed with different categories, like wheelchair accessible, or something we've been working on, JR Pass friendly, to make sure people know that they don't have to spend a single extra yen, or they don't have to they don't have to carry any cash for transportation besides their JR Pass. They know they will be covered just with that unique ticket. They usually activate from Tokyo when they come, which is a huge relief for most of our travelers, I believe.
Yeah, awesome. And in Hiroshima as well, you can use your JR Pass to get the ferry to Miyajima, to get the local trains,
Yeah, yeah,
and to get a sightseeing bus. So quite often there's extra perks along the way if you have that JR Pass. It's a
yes,
great foundation for your transportation in Japan for
yes.
sure.
I went to Miyajima last year in September, and I was really surprised and very positively surprised to see that JR Pass was actually covering everything to Miyajima, even the ferry.
Yeah. If you take the JR ferry, there's another rival,
Yes,
but yeah, you can. All right. Well, thank you so much, Remy. And thanks for sharing all your insights. And everybody, please check out the website. Thanks so much. We've got someone on YouTube saying, I'll check the site right now. Fantastic. Have a
Great.
great
Great to
day,
know.
everyone. Thank you again, Remy.
Thank you, Joy. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.